ऐ वतन हमको तेरी कसम, तेरी राहों में जहाँ तक लुटा जाएंगे। भूल क्या चीज है तेरे कदमों पे हम भेंट अपने सरों की चढ़ा जाएंगे। ऐ वतन, ऐ वतन।
The emotional bond with Mother India is embedded deep into the ethos of every Indian, whether living at home or overseas. Tens of thousands of Indians in 1857 declared mutiny, called Ghadar, to die fighting British imperialism. Just 50 years later, overseas Indians borrowed the same term in 1913 to launch the Ghadar movement in America. This is the story of an unprecedented engagement by a diaspora with its motherland, of unconditional love and ultimate sacrifice. From these Ghadarites, as they are now revered and called, the British gave death to 46. Some 69 received life imprisonment, including being thrown into island jails in the middle of an ocean, and 125 were imprisoned on various terms. The Ghadar movement marks its centenary in 2013. It is now the heritage of overseas Indians, especially from America.
The Ghadar movement started in the USA in 1913 as a diaspora movement, initiated outside of India for the independence of India. It is an integral part of the rich heritage of Indian Americans in the United States and of Indian history. The determination, courage, and sacrifices of the Ghadarites inspired many freedom fighters to continue their mission for India's independence, as well as for other diaspora countries.
Ghadar, it was the word that we inherited from 1857, and that movement, I think that's how the party's name was given. You think about it, and your blood is, obviously it's a revolutionary blood. That makes you do things above and beyond. It take me to next level.
Imagine in 1913, how many Indians could have gone out overseas? But 8,000 of them went back. That was remarkable. That large number of Indians went back when the call came, let's free India from the Britishers.
This was the first revolutionary movement for liberation of India, started by immigrants on a foreign soil. That too, 100 years back.
Quite a story.
Ghadarites had given up family and belonging in India to pursue their quest for the American dream. But these inconspicuous Indians in America, as farmers and students, gave it up all again to create a unique secular movement with an unstinted passion to fight for India's independence.
He would talk very little about his background because they were very careful. It became a habit not to tell anybody anything other than your party people. We found a lot about him after he was passed away, from historians and writers, and we read a lot of stuff in the book which we did not know.
In 1912, two farmers, one was named Jawala Singh, another Vasakha Singh. They had a potato farm, and at that time Jawala Singh was known as Potato King of California. He donated money in 1912, bought a small house, which you find today is called Sikh Temple of Stockton. And Jawala Singh was also the Paiji of that temple, which means he was one of the educated people and could do these services. And Jawala Singh was also the vice president of Ghadar party at that in 1913. And Jawala Singh was in the first batch to go to India to fight for the freedom of India. In the first batch, he went from here was never allowed to put his foot on India. From the ship, he was shipped to jail and was given life sentence, Kalapani. It was an organization that was exclusively of Indians. Religion had no meaning at that time.
This was such a unique movement. There are a lot of leaders from Punjab, but at the same time, this was the first secular movement. It had leaders from South, West, East, and Central and North India. This is one movement which inspired so many. And we must realize today, if we are sitting here or in India, in a country which is free, democratic, and everybody is, so easy to live with, that is because of what the dedication, what the passion these people had, and their sacrifice.
The Hindu Association of the Pacific Coast was the harbinger of the Ghadar movement, launching the Ghadar party around April 1913, buying the Yugantar Ashram building in downtown San Francisco in California state in USA, from where the weekly newspaper Ghadar the Gunj was launched. This weekly newspaper in different Indian languages shaped and spirited a unique revolution. Jagdish Singh Khangura is a proud grandson of a Ghadarite who was amongst the first to join cause.
He was orphan. His parents died in plague in 1903. He lost his both parents. Neighbors brought him up and sent him to school, missionary school, Ludhiana. That's where he did his middle. And he went to British Army for 6 months before he left the army and came to America. In 1906, he started working in the farming community in Stockton area. And that's when he got in contact with the students at Berkeley, Lala Hardayal, and they used to start meeting every so often, and that was the beginning of the whole Ghadar party movement. My grandfather was a 8th volunteer into the party, and whatever finances he had at the time, he earned over the years, he gave it to the party to use the funds for the party cause. He was working in the press to produce that newspaper called Ghadar the Gunj.
Another symbol of our that time era is the press, where they used to publish 2,500 Ghadar paper every week in Punjabi, 2,200 every week in Urdu, and then several thousand in other languages combined, including Gujarati language, because the Ghadarite at that time wanted to reach out every Indian wherever they are, whether in USA, Canada, or any other part of the world. The magazine was the main communication at that time which spread the message of Ghadar movement, which spread the message that we have to free India from the Britishers, and the people who used to receive were eagerly waiting for the weekly magazine to come. The poems in that magazine were recited at the various functions of the people. The poems in that were the unifying force whenever there were any gatherings, whether in Gurdwara or otherwise. They were magnifying, they were trying to reach out to people, tell the message of the Ghadar movement, tell them that we want India to be freed. And that is how, whether people were physically in San Francisco, or they were in Hong Kong, or they were in Singapore, when they were getting the message, they were getting fired up that yes, we have to get India freed from the Britishers.
Ghadarites did not know fear. These revolutionaries knew they would have to fight the British from the motherland. Way back then, they decided to harness the power of communication through the weekly newspaper in India.
3 or 4 members of the party, which my grandfather was part of it, was given the task to go to India and find a suitable place to produce the newspaper, underground newspaper from there. And they left ahead of time to just do exactly that.
Ghadar had numerous heroes, among them Lala Hardayal, who turned student Kartar Singh Saraba into a revolutionary. Saraba finished university at Berkeley, California, while still in his teens, jumped into the freedom struggle in India, and was even hanged by the British on November 16, 1915, when not even 20 years of age. Indian martyr Bhagat Singh, while in Lahore jail before being executed in 1931, talked of the ultimate sacrifice made by Saraba and other Ghadarites.
Ghadar Hall in Jalandhar was started by those people who went from USA, Canada and overseas, and they wanted to have some monument where they could preserve the memories of Ghadarites, living or dead. So that is how that building, with contributions from wherever they could get, from America, from overseas, from local, so they started that Ghadar Hall, and it still is a living symbol of the memory of all those.
The power and influence of the Ghadar movement continues to be felt to this day. It inspired the highest degree of patriotism, but also a value system that embraces secularism and standing up for humanity and morality. The Ghadar movement of America is a heritage for Indian Americans who feel its birthplace should serve as a shrine for the coming generations.
This printing press that used to be in at that time is still being preserved and will be on display forever in the Heritage Museum in Stockton.
Here in San Francisco, we have the memorial, and also in Berkeley, which is not far from here. That's where the Indian students, they started up the whole thing. Even today, the Berkeley has got so much of documentation and material, original material about this movement.
Well, we would like to pass this message to the next generation. We want the current generation also to know that our heritage in USA started more than 100 years ago. Indian Americans in USA started this movement, and they sacrificed for the freedom of India, and we have to preserve that heritage. Part of the preservation of that heritage is the building that is now known as, that used to be known as Yogantar Ashram or Ghadar Ashram. Today its name is Ghadar Memorial Hall in San Francisco. It is the same building rebuilt on the same place, and it has to become a shrine for the coming generation, so that our generation knows this is the heritage we have to salute to.
What we are planning to do is that in the next few months, we would make it open to the public so that regularly somebody is going to be there.
Okay.
And also what we are thinking is, because the next generations are very important for us, already we are thinking of getting school children. In special buses we get them, and there will be somebody who will explain to them. There are beautiful photographs of all the martyrs and those who sacrificed their life, and there are also some documentation, etc., original documentation which they can see. And also when the hall was inaugurated, those who contributed for the Ghadar Memorial Hall, all these things are there. So the children can come there, listen to and feel the experience. So that's what we are planning. This could become one of the centers for research. That's also possible. But most of the community leaders I have talked to, those who have come and met us, they are all enthusiastic about doing something, developing something further.
My message to my kids is to make them aware that what family we belong to, and what their duties will be after we are gone, that they have to keep on going back to the homeland and do what we started. The projects we have started towards in his memory and educational stuff. But we are supporting few schools back there, and that to continue that.
India and overseas Indians salute the brave men and women and wish to keep the light burning bright on the sacrifice made by the Ghadarites and martyrs.
हम लाए हैं तूफान से किश्ती निकाल के इस देश को रखना मेरे बच्चों संभाल के.
We in GOPIO want to commemorate Centennial in a prominent way with a global Centennial commemoration that recognizes and remembers those who made such remarkable sacrifices, leaving an extraordinary legacy for future generations. It is a fitting and well-deserved tribute.
It is basically GOPIO took the initial initiative to start something and do this thing. But while we are doing that and we support it entirely, there are all other organizations are also who are interested in developing activities and start this.
GOPIO is commemorating the Ghadar Centennial with a year-long series of lectures in 22 cities worldwide, including 5 universities in Punjab and elsewhere in India, and beginning with a launch on November 3rd, 2012 in Washington, D.C., followed by GOPIO Conference and PBD 2013 in Kochi.
This is a PBD oration. Some eminent person will make an oration. This time the subject is the Ghadar movement. Many of you know that Ghadar movement was one of the important event in the world history, especially the Indians who fought for the freedom and they given their life. The Ghadar movement is a proud movement. As the Indians are concerned, overseas Indians believe that is one of the contribution by the overseas Indians even those days. So we are going to have an oration on the importance of the Ghadar movement. It will be there, apart from the other programs.
We are very happy that now the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs will be organizing the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, where the theme or the keynote speech or oration will be on Ghadar movement. There will be an exhibit on Ghadar movement. There will be a book being written now on Ghadar movement, which will be released as part of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. So we are very happy that the effort that we started almost now more than 18 months ago is showing some shape, and we hope that all people throughout, they make this Centennial in 2013 as a major event wherever they are celebrating India Independence Day. The theme should be Ghadar movement. It is befitting that we pay tribute to the Ghadarites who started this freedom movement back 100 years ago.
All over America, of course, will be in India also. There will be many events that will take off from now onwards till next year, and the culminating event is to be held in a large scale in San Francisco or the Bay Area, which covers this area. Right. So that is going to be the fitting tribute to all that the Ghadari Babas did. This will help in rejuvenating the spirit of all the Indians. It will promote goodwill amongst the Indian diaspora as well as those who are in India. And then this will create the pride of being Indians.